Senator from Alaska.
Mr. President, I want to thank my friend from the great state of Montana, Senator Tester. This is actually a bill that he and I have co-sponsored out of the Veterans Affairs Committee, and it's the companion bill that we're going to be bringing over from the House to vote on here in a couple minutes to hopefully get this on the President's desk very soon to get him to sign it. You know, there's a lot of legislation that focuses on these kind of issues. How do we address this growing problem of suicide in our country? But particularly, Mr. President, the real tragedy, all suicides are tragic, but there's very high numbers of suicides that impact our veterans. My state, the great state of Alaska, has more vets per capita than any state in the country. We're proud of that patriotic fact. Tragically, though, sadly, we also have some of the highest suicide rates in America. And so since I've come to this body, had the privilege to serve my fellow Alaskans, focusing on suicide has been a very, very important issue. For me, it's a very important issue for my constituents. It's a very important issue for America. Matter of fact, one of the first bill I co-sponsored as a U.S. Senator was called the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act, which was named after a young Marine who had a number of deployments and unfortunately, when he was seeking help, couldn't really get it. And unfortunately, this young brave hero took his own life. So this should be a priority for the Senate, and we have been prioritizing the veterans and the members of the military who are in crisis when we draft legislation that tries to address these challenges. But what we're doing today, Mr. President, is also important. And this bill actually focuses on the people who help our veterans. These are suicide prevention coordinators. They're specifically trained, specially trained employees at VA medical centers who identify and connect high-risk veterans with the care they need. Across the nation, these VA professionals conduct outreach, promote awareness, disseminate suicide prevention best practices. They are literally on the front lines. But, as you can imagine, this isn't an easy job. This is a hard job. And there are reports that many of these prevention coordinators throughout the VA system are overworked and unable to keep up with their many responsibilities. So what we are focused on here, Mr. President, is that we want to make sure that the people who are helping our veterans are also taken care of, adequately resourced, so they can do the best job in terms of helping our veterans. The VA must have skilled and resource workforce available, trained to recognize the warning signs of a veteran in crisis, and then be able to work with that veteran, hopefully, successfully connect them with life-saving resources before it's too late. So that is what the Support for Suicide Prevention Coordinators Act requires. That's what Senator Tester and I worked together on to bring this out of the VA committee. And hopefully, if we get that right, then it has a positive impact on lessening this high rate of suicide among our veterans. Senator Tester mentioned what was in this, but it's not just additional resources, but it's also a comprehensive study by the GAO to make sure that our coordinators are resourced, have a strategy to make sure they can do their jobs most effectively to impact our veterans. So it's an overall look at the VA system of preventing veteran suicide with a focus on these frontline coordinators who do really, really important work. They're not always recognized. For those who are doing that work, I commend you, the Senate commends you, and I think we're going to have an overwhelming vote here in a couple minutes that will make sure your ability to do this really, really important job for our veterans, for our nation, that you're going to be able to do it better. So, Mr. President, I applaud the leadership on both sides of the aisle for bringing this bill to the floor, and I encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of this legislation. Let's get it on the President's desk for a signature soon, and we can take another step to make sure that we are taking care of our veterans and are trying to address this horribly tragic situation where far too many veterans in America are taking their own lives. I yield the floor.